A thrill shot through Ikaru. This spell was not merely a technique, it was a promise of might that could summon the fury of a tempest. The forecast above began to shift, swirls of dark clouds igniting with flashes of brilliance, melding into a tumultuous kaleidoscope of colors. As the revelations unfolded, Ikaru's eyes darted over the cryptic symbols, desperately grasping the meaning behind the words. He stumbled over the syllables with faltering confidence, but the urgency of the moment pressed him forward. As he chanted the incantation, the atmosphere trembled, and light arced across Byaku's form, wrapping him in an ethereal embrace. The yokai glowed, each spark of lightning intertwining like veins of thunder, a radiant beacon ready to unleash its fury. Yet, amidst this transformation, Kirin lunged toward the gates of the school, a ruinous force intent on destruction. Ikaru turned just in time to see the pillars of the gate shake under Kirin's relentless assault, splintering under the weight of his wrath. Panic swelled within Ikaru's chest as he and a scattered band of spirits rushed to fend off the imminent threat, a futile surge against the onslaught of chaos. Every effort seemed laughable in the face of Kirin's dark power. "We can't let him breach the gates," someone shouted, words lost in the cacophony of thunder. But it was true, they were outmatched, overpowered by a foe whose essence was raw and savage. Ikaru's heart pounded in resonance with the storm. If Kirin succeeded, the sanctuary of the school, their last bastion, would crumble into memory, lost to the annals of despair. In that moment, the weight of destiny hung heavy in the air, a cruel reminder that hope was never easy. The pages of ancient magic danced in his mind as Ikaru wrestled with his fear. With every ounce of strength, he pushed against the tide of hopelessness, determined to unleash the heavens and reclaim their fate. The time had come, he would not let the yokai's darkness snuff out their light. With a roar that resonated through the heavens, he called out, clutching the pendant tight in his grasp. "Now! Call of the heavens!" Ikaru felt a gnawing sense of urgency as the chaos around him escalated. The powerful yokai, a swirling mass of anger and menace, threatened to smash through the gates of the school, endangering the students within. Kazu's voice cut through the panic, a lifeline in this tempest. "Ikaru, we must do something to calm him down, so that our spirits have enough time to power up," he said, his focus razor-sharp. Ikaru nodded, trying to mask the storm of doubt brewing in his chest. He didn't have the luxury of hesitation, they had no choice but to act. With measured movements, he withdrew sheets of shikigami from the confines of his satchel, each one imbued with potent energy, each a conduit to the spirits that could tip the scales in their favor. Inhaling deeply, Ikaru steadied himself, ready to call forth his summoned beast. "Shikigami of the Divine One, answer my calls. Rust with the mighty elephant and summon the thunderous might of the almighty mammoth." His voice resonated with resolve, birthing ancient words that danced through the air like fireflies. "Come forth, Max Elephant Shikigami, release." As though the shadows themselves sighed in anticipation, a titan emerged, a mammoth towering 13 feet tall, its massive form cloaked in a shimmering layer of ice. This was no ordinary beast, it was a Shikigami, a reflection of Ikaru's will, ready to heed his call. The creature's tusks shone with crystalline sharpness, each breath exhaling frigid air that could freeze the very ground beneath them. With a quickened heart, Ikaru watched as the Max Elephant stepped forward, its sheer presence halting the frenzied rampage of the yokai. A jet of icy water shot from the Shikigami's massive tusk, extinguishing the yokai's nearest attack. For a fleeting moment, the chaos paused, tension thickening the air like a taut bowstring. But the yokai wasn't finished. Ikaru sensed the swell of power, the horrifying promise of a stronger assault about to erupt. Just then, as if crafted in the same narrative of heroic timing that seemed far-fetched even in stories, Jiro burst onto the scene with his fire horse, a blazing figure in a landscape of dread. "Stop him, Kirin!" Jiro commanded, his voice fierce and unwavering. The fire horse reared back, flames licking the air in fervent tribute to its master's will. A torrent of fire erupted toward the yokai, the radiant blaze matching, and perhaps even eclipsing, the earlier chill of the mammoth. Together, they bore down on the creature, putting it under a two-pronged assault that illustrated a true collaboration of elements, ice against fire, united in purpose. Yet, as the chaos unfolded, the brutality of the confrontation loomed. Despite Jiro's fervor and Ikaru's conviction, the yokai stood resolute, a grotesque amalgamation reminiscent of a deer and moose fused in a desperate, wretched union. No matter their combined efforts, it felt like they merely scratched at the surface of something much more formidable. "We have to redirect him," Ikaru urged, adrenaline surging. "We can't let this spill over into the school." The students, his voice trailed off, the implications painfully clear. They needed to bring the battle away from the innocent, to protect those huddled in frightened corners of the building. Jiro nodded, determination etched on his features. "On my mark, we push him back." With a pounding heart, Ikaru readied himself, aware that their next move might determine the fate of not just their spirits, but of every life hanging in the balance. The clash had only just begun, and the yokai, now cornered, seemed to pulse with an unsettling challenge, daring them to escalate this wretched game even further. The air was thick with tension as Jiro, with an exasperated tone that made it clear he was about to reiterate the obvious, declared that we needed to drive the beast away from the school, because, of course, not getting hurt was a novel idea. With eager eyes, he turned to Kazu, inviting his spirit Zusaku into the chaotic fray, as if conjuring help from the great beyond was as easy as ordering takeout. Zusaku, seemingly the only one with a glimmer of sense, agreed to assist, though one had to wonder if he had any real choice in the matter. In the midst of our frantic chatter, we were struck by a sound so strange it defied explanation. The yokai, which had previously exuded an air of menace, suddenly halted mid-attack, confusion flickering across its grotesque features. It dug into the ground and, in a flash of dirt and desperation, vanished beneath the earth. We stood there, mouths agape, as the realization that our predicament had just morphed into something even more baffling sank in. We'd been saved, or had we? What new disaster lurked below the surface? After what felt like an eternity of cleaning up the havoc wreaked by the yokai, our surroundings bore the scars of the confrontation. The ground was a mess of churned soil, and a section of the shard wall that protected our very existence now lay in ruins. The sense of impending doom hung heavy. We didn't know what the next yokai would bring, only that it would be worse than the last. This sense of dread could have been suffocating, but what was more concerning was how easily we adapted to chaos as if our lives were just another day at a poorly run amusement park.
Finally, after 4 grueling days of labor, endless shifts of sweat and grime, the sound of a loud horn interrupted our weary silence. We lined up, spirits beside us, awaiting our fate like rows of dolls on display. Out of the haze of uncertainty rode the school president, Masako, perched astride a griffin, her presence demanding attention. She had the audacity to stop at the end of our line, dismount, and introduce herself, as if we hadn't just battled a creature that could have turned us into giant puddles of goo. Masako boasted of the griffin, a ridiculous hybrid of lion and eagle, claiming its unmatched speed and ferocity in a way that made it sound more like a circus act than a noble beast. The thought of taming such a creature, if one wasn't bursting with strong energy, was laughable. The consequences of failure included becoming its next snack. Her speech about our upcoming training sounded like the same old spiel, the kind that promised hope yet felt more like a ploy to keep us on our toes. We were to become protectors, supposedly ready to face whatever bleak futures awaited our families. Yet, in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the thought that in a place where hope felt as elusive as a mirage, the real danger wasn't just the yokai lurking underground, but the arrogance of believing we were able to face them at all. The truly terrifying aspect? We were all keenly aware that the worst was yet to come. As the chatter subsided, the lady stood with a flourish, her excitement palpable. "This is my griffin," she declared, pointing to the majestic creature perched beside her, its feathers glistening under the classroom lights. It wasn't easy to control him at first, I promise you. It was like trying to tame a storm. Her words hung in the air, exaggerated like a drama played out for an audience far more interested in their own struggles than her attempts at grandeur. With a collective sigh, we shuffled into the main hallway of the academy. It stretched endlessly before us, a gauntlet of doors with signs that read like the labels of unhelpful ingredients in a recipe for chaos. Each room numbered in accordance with some twisted system of experience and skill levels that felt more like an affront than a guide. The beginner's class lay at the end of the hall, a poorly kept secret of how far we had yet to climb, while the advanced rooms held the air of entitlement, located smugly at the front. As we wound our way down the corridor, I could overhear snatches of conversation, familiar rants peppered with false bravado and far too much self-importance. Here, at the School of Spirits and the Supernatural, lessons came with the added burden of egos, swollen by delusions of grandeur, ignorant of the perils lurking just beyond the walls. Much to our dismay, we just wrapped up a class entitled Spirit Healing, wherein we were treated to a lecture on the various beings that inhabited our world. Apparently, most could shapeshift, as if that information was meant to be comforting. Did our instructor even realize how ludicrous it sounded? Shape-shifting spirits tied to gods, this place was becoming an absurd pageant of fairy tales rather than the esteemed academy it purported to be. The only thing we truly learned was that the yokai hailed from an alternate dimension, a slightly absurd twist in an already bizarre story. It was almost comical how solemnly the teachers spoke of these creatures, their passion unwavering despite the eye rolls and stifled yawns around the room. And with each class, the pendants, a mystery wrapped in more questions, remained just that, an enigma. What were they for? Surely, there had to be more than pretty jewelry clasped around our necks with naught but the weight of ambiguity. The hours dragged on until finally, we retreated to our dorms, which were little more than sardine cans masquerading as living spaces for deluded, aspiring champions. Each room had its own character, tailored for the level of skill that dictated our existence here. I climbed into bed, as Bayako flopped onto the foot of my bed, snoring as if he were rehearsing for a role in a tragic comedy. If I had to listen to a half-awake monster with questionable hygiene all night, tragic it would be. Sleep enveloped me, but not before a dream twisted reality into a nightmarish tapestry. The dark blue dragon reemerged, its voice a low rumble echoing in my thoughts. The fight is far from over, it warned, the gravity palpable. Kirin isn't finished with you, be cautious when confronting him. There was something menacing about its words, a warning that gripped me with icy fear. And just when I was ready to demand clarity from the beast, I was jolted awake. Bayako had decided that sleep was for the weak, rousing me with an enthusiastic kick. Morning had arrived with the relentless certainty of an alarm clock, signaling the start of another day at this ridiculous institution. I groaned in response, retreating under my covers for an extra moment of denial before the inevitable chaos of classes descended upon us yet again. Ikaru stirred from his dreams, the remnants of peaceful slumber slipping away like water through fingers. Bayako, his ever-enthusiastic tiger spirit, nudged him awake, their foreheads briefly touching in a wake-up routine that had become tradition. The golden light of dawn streamed through the open doorway, illuminating the cluttered room shared with Aoshi, a figure who seemed to carry the weight of the world in his quiet demeanor. With a yawn that echoed the laziness of morning, Ikaru rubbed the sleep from his eyes and turned to Bayako with a small, grateful smile. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and stood, feeling the familiar drag of fatigue. As always, the room was a mix of chaos and comfort, a reflection of his life at the Shikigami Academy, where challenges were as common as textbooks. Aoshi, the stoic roommate, was already dressed, his expression unreadable and distant. Ikaru had learned little from him about the school's intricacies, and the mysteries surrounding their pendants remained unresolved. Aoshi, whose name meant hero and leader, seemed to embody an unspoken burden, his lion spirit, a striking, two-tailed creature with a shimmering golden mane, watching silently, as if acknowledging the gravity of their surroundings. Together, they made their way to their first class of the day, a trek that felt eternal in the hallway bustling with half-awake students and their spirited companion beasts. The classroom was alive with the smell of old parchment and the promise of adventure, thanks to Sensei Ayumu, their history teacher with a knack for weaving tales that transported his students into the very heart of Ethera, the mythical realm of the yokai. Once settled in their seats, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation as Sensei Ayumu spoke. His voice painted vivid images of a god-beast guarding the gates to Ethera, of ancient heroes who sealed away a great evil. Ikaru found himself captivated. Hours drifted away as the tales unfolded, of balance, of ancestral power, and he could almost see the ancient yokai strolling through the pages of history, their presence lingering like shadows half-remembered.
But boredom lurked, too, stitched between the lessons and textbook assignments piling up like an insurmountable mountain. As the hours dragged on, Ikaru's mind wandered, focusing on the promise of adventure, the potential that lay just beyond their world. It was then, amidst the monotony of lectures, that a rumble shattered the air, jolting everyone from the realm of textbook knowledge. Heads turned toward the window. Gasps filled the classroom as they bore witness to the return of Kirin, the legendary yokai who had wreaked havoc before. His majestic form was a blend of power and fury, and he was back, claws aimed at the very essence of their school's defenses. Instinct kicked in. The vice president of the academy and several upperclassmen sprang into action, dispatching students to stay seated, a futile gesture, as the adrenaline surged through Ikaru's veins. With a glance towards Byako, who radiated excitement, and a purposeful nod to Aoshi, though he showed little reaction, they sprang into motion. "Let's help them," Ikaru urged, determination igniting within him. Together, they charged toward the chaos unfolding at the front of the school, ready to rally alongside their teachers and defend their haven against the encroaching storm of the yokai world. In that moment, amid the clash of tradition and turmoil, Ikaru stepped into the fray, spirit and heart ablaze. The time for sitting still was over. It was time to create their legacy. The classroom and history lessons faded behind them, eclipsed by the promise of battle and the chance to forge new stories amidst the footsteps of heroes long past. Ikaru's heart raced as Reika's urgent voice sliced through the air. "We must hurry up, they need our help right about now." He exchanged worried glances with Tortai and the others, their breath heavy with the weight of impending doom even as they sprinted down the corridor. Each echoed footstep felt like a countdown to catastrophe, urging them toward the chaos that awaited them outside. When they burst through the main door, a visceral scene unfolded before them. The spirits, once vibrant and full of life, lay scattered on the ground, their forms flickering like dying embers in the twilight. The griffin beast fought fiercely, its wings a blur of feathers and fury, but each strike against the encroaching yokai seemed futile, a relentless tide against which it could not prevail. "Ikaru, we must do something to help, or everything will be damaged again." Byako's voice thundered through the din, a fierce determination igniting in his gaze. Ikaru nodded in silent agreement, the urgency of the moment anchoring them all to their resolve. As battle erupted around them, Ikaru felt a strange energy radiating from his pendant. It pulsed against his chest, guiding him into a vision, one stained with the promise of power yet tinged with uncertainty. In the haze of the vision, a new ability revealed itself, a dormant strength within Byako that could tip the balance of this dire confrontation. Frantically, Ikaru reached for his book, an ancient tome that now seemed to thrum with its own life, opening to a brand-new page as if it were privy to the urgency brewing in his heart. The words inscribed there, "God Almighty cast spell," danced before his eyes, shimmering with potential as he realized they held the key to evolution, to awakening Byako's true power. "Ikaru, if you are going to do something, don't you think you should do it right now before it is too late?" Kazu's voice broke through the fray, each syllable laced with desperation. He and Zusaku were locked in a dance of distraction, hurling fireballs toward Kirin, desperately trying to lure the yokai away from their compromised allies. With resolve hardening in his chest, Ikaru met Byako's gaze. They shared an unspoken understanding. This was their moment. Together, they stepped forward, courage folding over them like armor. Ikaru took a deep breath, steadied himself, and began to recite the incantation from the book. "Kami no chikara wa, watashitachi o mamori, jikuna yokai to tatakai, watashitachi zen, in o sukatame and itenchi o okuramashita. Chikara o shibaru juman ga daru. Oshin ga juman o tonait watashitachi o tasakit kuramashita." His voice rang out, a clarion call to the heavens, summoning the forgotten echoes of divine strength. With each word, the energy around them intensified, swelling like a storm about to burst. From the shadows of doubt, a flicker of hope ignited as the very essence of their spirits began intertwining, amplifying with the celestial power coursing through Ikaru's invocation. In that moment, in the eye of the raging storm, destiny reached forth to entwine with their will. They were preparing to unleash a force that could shift the tide of battle, and at last, the time for action had come. The air was thick with tension as Ikaru's voice rang through the battlefield, a blend of urgency and grit. "Let's go, Byako. Use the full-force Tiger Fairy Blade." As if responding to a battle cry, Byako shimmered with an ethereal blue glow, radiant energy rippling around him like an electrified river. In a heartbeat, he charged forward, unleashing a torrent of ferocious strikes upon the formidable yokai known as Kirin. The clash was nothing short of cataclysmic. The ground trembled underfoot as the two legendary creatures engaged in their deadly dance. Kirin, with its majestic horn and scales that seemed to shift and ripple like a stormy sea, retaliated with a force that sent shock waves through the air. Meanwhile, a griffin, having just regained its footing after being slammed into the ground, lifted its wings high. With a fierce flapping, the griffin conjured blades of wind, its feathers slicing through the air, transforming it into a swirling tornado. Watching the griffin deftly manipulate the wind sparked an idea in Ikaru's mind, a fragment of inspiration that surged forth amidst the chaos. "By Akko!" he shouted, urgency lacing his tone. "Channel your thunder into the tornado. Ride the winds." The command resonated with Byakko, who immediately summoned electricity, crackling within his fur like a tempest just waiting to be unleashed. With unyielding determination, Byakko soared into the heart of the tornado, weaving through its powerful spirals. Lightning erupted from him, cascading through the vortex and amplifying its force. As the storm raged, sparks flew, illuminating the darkening sky. In the midst of this tempest, Ikaru discerned another vision, an astonishing revelation that unfurled like a scroll before his eyes. It was a tool, a new ability begging to be unleashed upon Kirin. "Move with the tornado, Byakko, and unleash tornado erosion," Ikaru commanded. With precision born of their unwavering bond, Byakko complied, the tornado engulfing him as he struck down in a crushing blow against Kirin. The evil yokai, caught off guard, was pummeled to the ground, its strength drained and its defiance stripped away. But just as victory seemed within reach, the world shook once more. The sky darkened ominously as swollen clouds gathered, churning in furious clouds of black and ash. A voice boomed, echoing across the tumult, "Beware! Sooner or later, this world will belong to the yokai." With that prophetic warning, a bolt of lightning struck, snaking down to ensnare Kirin, drawing it away as if the very sky sought to reclaim its dark emissary.
The battle subsided, leaving the team breathless and shaken. As they made their way back into the sanctuary of their school, relief mingled with trepidation. The teachers hurriedly reactivated the protective force field, ensuring no further yokai dared to approach. They had narrowly escaped catastrophe, though many hours of class were lost to the chaos outside. Finally settling into their history class, the students tried to catch their breath amidst the retelling of their recent skirmishes. The teacher, with a solemn expression, began to illuminate the nature of the yokai, a world of dangers that could transform and twist into anything or anyone, veiled in deceit. From his desk, the teacher produced a list, a grim catalogue of the most dangerous yokai yet to be encountered. "We can work together," he urged, taking on tasks that will send these entities back to where they belong. The weight of that challenge hung in the air, an unspoken burden mingling with the hope that perhaps, together, they could confront the shadows lurking beyond the walls of their haven. Ikaru felt the stirrings of anticipation in his chest. The fight was far from over.
Chapter 3. The Beast of Impurity and Injustice. The air crackled with tension as the clamor of battle loomed over the school grounds. Shadows twisted unnaturally beneath the crimson sky, while a grotesque yokai, its snarl revealing jagged teeth like shards of broken glass, loomed menacingly before them. The sight was nearly enough to provoke laughter. Here they were, a band of self-proclaimed guardians, armed with little more than bravado and glowing pendants, preparing to face an entity of utter chaos. "Let's do this," Ikaru shouted, his voice a shrill echo of misplaced confidence. It was almost comical watching him attempt to rally his friends, as if sheer enthusiasm could mask the insignificance of their endeavor. "Our goal is to protect the school and make sure that no one gets hurt in any way at all." As if saying it would somehow instill a semblance of courage into their quivering ranks. Pathetic. The pendants dangled around their necks, shimmering with an eagerness matching the naivete of their owners. It was almost ironic how those pieces of jewelry glowed with power, their light not unlike that of a candle flickering helplessly against a storm. "You can practically feel the weight of their determination," someone might say. But truthfully, it felt more like the weight of their impending doom, a fate all but sealed by their enthusiasm. Kazu and his partner Zisu took their positions at the back of the yokai. They crept back, laden with the boldness of two fools hoping to surprise a beast that could probably swat them aside with a mere flick of its disfigured paw. Ready to attack him with all their might, they claimed. It was laughable. They seemed to think some grand strategy was afoot, but what did they really have? A wide-open view of their incompetence as the true warriors of the world. The hardened veterans who had faced horrors before stood apart, eyeing them with both disdain and pity. One by one, the guardians gripped their pendants tighter, and in that moment of glowing foolishness, the beast began to stir. It was neither an awakening nor an affront. It was a mere twitch of disdain, as if to say, "Is this the best you can do?" With hearts racing and minds clouded by dauntless dreams, they prepared to engage the promised chaos. Perhaps they believed bravery alone could shield them from the inevitable grim tide that approached. Burdened with unrealistic hopes and worthless dreams, they stepped forth to confront the abyss, unaware of the truth lurking within the shadows. Sometimes the best of intentions leads only to the worst of conclusions. The air crackled with a tense urgency as Kazu bellowed, "You ready, Zisaku? It's time to show them what we're made of." He gripped his spell book tightly, the intricate symbol of the flames of protection shimmering ominously on its cover. His voice was infused with the adrenaline of battle, a cry filled with reckless determination. Zisaku, sensing the gravity of the moment, began to shimmer with an ethereal glow. His wings transformed into a magnificent conflagration, flames spiraling around his body like a cyclone of heat and light. The spectacle was both magnificent and terrifying, a sight destined to incite envy in the hearts of their less capable peers. Charging towards the rampaging yokai, Zisaku unleashed a surge of energy that sent him hurtling forward with ferocity. "We must try to calm this yokai down before it destroys the whole school building and everyone here," Zisaku urged, though his heart pounded with the thrill of potential conflict. He cast a quick glance at Kazu before focusing back on the monstrous figure before them, the embodiment of chaotic fury. The yokai, furious and malevolent, began to amplify its power, flames licking hungrily from its twisted maw. It charged with a ferocious snarl, unleashing volleys of fireballs that zipped dangerously close to the group. Blackened ash swirled at their feet, and the heat pressed down like an oppressive shroud. Bayako exchanged a steely glance with Ikaru, an unspoken understanding passing between them as they prepared to unleash their own energies. Bayako's crystal flared into brilliant light, bathing him in a radiant blue flame that danced around him like a protective aura. It was a striking display of power, one that bordered on the divine, and yet one couldn't help but feel a flicker of envy at the might that surged through him. As Ikaru clasped his crystal, the weight of ancestral responsibility settled upon his shoulders. He reached for his grandfather's book, flipping it open with a sense of purpose that overshadowed the chaos unfolding around him. "Ethera," he read aloud, his voice steady as he concentrated on the ancient incantation, a spell capable of sending the yokai spiraling into the void between worlds. As the words spilled from his lips, Bayako's tail ignited, lengthening and morphing into a flaming whip, and together they struck. The yokai shrieked in agony, a sound that split the air yet gave the impression of mockery. It howled as if it were an affronted deity rather than the beast it appeared. As their combined forces bore down on the yokai, Ikaru caught a glimpse of Bayako powering up, determination etched into the very fabric of his being. The magnitude of their collective energy was intoxicating, a thrilling rush of might that would surely leave lesser foes trembling in despair. Yet here they were facing an entity that reveled in destruction, and as they unleashed their fury, they could feel the earth itself shudder beneath the weight of their conflict. With each strike, the yokai faltered, its resilience tested against the unrelenting onslaught. The heat surged, but it was not merely the flames that enveloped them. It was the burning ambition beneath the surface. They fought not just for survival but for pride, grounded in the knowledge that victory would not only safeguard their school but would prove that they were far from inadequate, far from the shadows of their enemies. It was a battle to showcase who they truly were, warriors ablaze with the fires of determination. In the heart of the stormy skies, chaos reigned supreme. Kirin, the relentless yokai, had staggered to his feet, fueled by the bruises painted across his spectral form. His eyes, glimmering with defiance, locked onto Bayako, who was finally harnessing the full extent of his power, a sleek golden figure against the tumult of dark clouds above. The air crackled with tension as Icarus' pendant began to glow, pulsing with a rhythm that seemed almost sentient. It synchronized with the illumination emanating from his grandfather's ancient book, the two artifacts linked by some unyielding thread of fate. As Icarus' heart raced, he was engulfed in a blinding vision, a cascade of light illuminating the darkness that surrounded him. Images darted through his mind, glyph and symbols revealing the secret method to activate the pendant, amplifying Byako's strength like a dam bursting with life-giving water. With an ominous flutter, the book soared into the air, pages rustling as if they too were creatures eager to escape their confines. It landed open at a newly inscribed page that shimmered with a spell called Call of the Heavens.